Chelsea 5, West Ham 1, and they're back. They're back. There was a minor blip last week against Crystal Palace. A very, very minor blip, but they're back on track. And in such commanding fashion. We looked at Chelsea today, knowing they needed to make a reaction, knowing they needed to make some kind of response from last week. And it was looking a little shaky before a ball was even kicked because in the warm-up, Cole Palmer pulling out, and in his place came Estevao. That's obviously such a big loss for Chelsea because look, I mean, that's their best player going out. And in his place for his first start in the Premier League, a 17-year-old with relatively no experience in English football. What were Chelsea going to look like? How would they respond to their earlier setback against Palace? And what we would learn is they would respond very, very well. Look, I mean, this game started a little shaky because we were all looking at Estevao, we were all looking at Chelsea, and I think Estevao got a real wake-up call today with that little flick that he tried in the first half, and he tried one in the second half as well, too, that didn't work out either. And that's the thing with Estevao, right? He's an entertainer, he's Brazilian, he's a trickster, he wants to get people off their seat. But I think what he's going to learn at Chelsea, and what he's going to learn in English football, is there's a time and place for everything. What you could do in the Brazilian league, you are going to have to pick your moments more accordingly now that you're in the Prem, especially since you're no longer the main man on the team anymore, right? You are now a piece of the puzzle. At Palmeiras is a different game. Not trying to discourage him from showing his flair, showing his majesty, right? But he's got to pick his moments a little better. Estevao, I think that was a real, not wake-up call, but it was like, okay, you can't afford to do those flicks because he loses the ball there. West Ham win it up high. The ball falls to Paqueta's feet. Chelsea are not really in their defensive shape. And Paqueta releases the strike past Robert Sanchez. That is just so brilliant, man. So good. Now, some people will say Robert Sanchez should do a little better there. And maybe he can get a hand on it. But I think the strike from Paqueta is more brilliance than it is a mistake off Robert Sanchez's part. And 1-0 West Ham. And I think at that point deserved. And you're starting to think in that moment, okay, they drew the first game, Chelsea. They're now behind in this game as well, too. Is the hype around Chelsea early season, was it a little too much? But I think they responded really, really well. And guys, I'm going to pull up the tactics board. We're going to pull up the tactics board here. Shout out to James Lawrence Alcott. Of course, he's released the JLA tactics board for people. If you want to subscribe to it, if you want to get your own version of it, I'm going to leave the link in the description down below. We used it for the Spurs PSG game. I'm using it again today. So typically, right, I think from the beginning, when we saw Cole Palmer, we were expecting it to be something like this, right? I was even potentially thinking it was going to be something like this. Chalobah, Tosin, Gusto playing as a right center back, Cucurella inverting into midfield, and then something a bit like this. Palmer on the right, Pedro, Fernandez, Delap, and Neto. That's what I was expecting because we did see flashes of this in the Club World Cup. What we ended up getting instead, of course, with Palmer leaving, was Estevao taking this place. And I thought, okay, still, we're going to see Estevao more as a touchline winger. Because from what I saw from Estevao at the Club World Cup, he occupied this position and even sometimes this position quite a bit. Now, my problem with Estevao in the Club World Cup was because he was so isolated out wide. One thing I learned about Estevao is he's quick, he's fast, but he's not really explosive, right? He's not like Pedro Neto can get the ball in these positions and one quick burst is gone. He can get down the touchline. One quick burst and he's here. He's so explosive. Estevao, I quickly learned, doesn't really have that. And when he's kind of isolated out wide, in a 1v1 duel, he is susceptible to losing the ball because he doesn't really have that power in terms of getting past his man. That's something I learned from the Club World Cup. I learned really quickly that he's really good in these areas, and especially when he can kind of get space and take a shot in these positions, really, really strong. But I do feel like in these wide positions, he is kind of easily nullified. And I think Maresca has identified that as well too, because this wasn't the way Chelsea lined up. It's the way I thought they might, but they didn't end up lining up like that. It actually ended up becoming something a bit more like this. Chalobah central, Cucurella playing it out in a 3. Caicedo almost holding it down on his own at times, with Enzo receiving it deep at times, but it almost became a bit more like this. Gusto holding the width here, Neto holding the width here, and Fernandez and Estevao being either side of Joao Pedro, who was right behind Liam Delap. But it allowed Estevao to play more as an interior today than as an out-and-out winger. And I think it really allowed us to see the best of Estevao today. Because Estevao now in these positions, again, isn't isolated out wide, can pick up the ball in the hole right here, can pick up the ball and immediately face goal. West Ham were at 6s and 7s, not knowing who to defend, which often meant Estevao could get the ball, turn, and have space to run into. And on a few occasions, I think you really got to see the best of him. In my opinion, his best moment comes today when, who was it? Was it Paqueta who loses the ball here? Diouf passes it into that position. I think Paqueta has to be a lot stronger. And I think Estevao picks up the ball from that move, is able to skip past one or two, runs into the box, does really, really good to bide his time, and then plays an excellent ball across the box for Joao Pedro to tap in. It was exceptional work. It wasn't Joao Pedro, was it? It was Enzo, excuse me. Exceptional work from Estevao to play it directly into the path of Enzo Fernandez, who I think, again, today showcased that, look, a few times today, Chelsea would get the ball in these positions, right on the edge of the box. And so many times, the lap would make this run here. Joao Pedro makes this run here. And Enzo just hangs around. He's really making a knack of becoming one of the best box crashers in the Premier League. How many times do you see Chelsea low to the box and it's Enzo making that late run to finish home a chance? I think this is becoming a real staple of his game. And today, Chelsea really used that to their advantage. And once they got their first, right, the floodgates kind of just opened. It became easy for Chelsea to kind of just get whatever they wanted. But it all really started, in my opinion, from Estevao kind of being unleashed down the side. So I think today was really all about Estevao. You saw his best moments. I think you also saw a little bit of immaturity with West Ham's goal. Look, there's moments to show your flair, right? Up here, no problem. Up here, no problem. Up here, no problem. But here, I think that's a side of his game that Maresca will probably coach out or at least manage a little better, because away to West Ham, you don't want to be seeing players doing back heels in their own half. It's just too risky, right? Another way that Chelsea really exposed West Ham today was set pieces. I mean, today, I think we learned that West Ham might be the worst team defensively off set pieces in the entire Premier League. And I don't think that's an exaggeration. On set pieces, these guys are absolutely woeful. Terrible. And whether it was their marking, whether it was their coverage, whether it was their goalkeeper Hermansen, recently signed off Leicester, failing to even be able to catch the ball, Chelsea absolutely exposed West Ham from set pieces today. Joao Pedro grabbed one. Chalobah grabbed one as well too. Who else grabbed one, chat? It was Caicedo. They exposed them so many times today, chat. And I'm sorry, right? I'm talking about the Estevao chance. It didn't come from Paqueta. That was actually Neto's goal. I'm getting them all mixed up. When you score 5 goals, man, you get them mixed up. But yeah, I mean, set pieces, I think Chelsea really strode a strong suit, but it really showed that this West Ham side, man, under Graham Potter, are sinking like a stone. And personally, I don't see Graham Potter seeing October. Now, that might even be generous, because I think at this rate, September, he'll be lucky to be in a job. This team has no identity under him. They have no structure. They have no shape. It's an absolute calamity. And it's light years away from that side that David Moyes built, that, like it or not, and I actually think West Ham were right to part with him. I think they just got the appointment wrong. But one thing you knew about West Ham, from set pieces and structurally, they had a platform. They could defend. Under Graham Potter, every single time a team attacks against them, you think they're going to score. Chelsea could have scored 10 today. No exaggeration. And I think a big part of that was also due to Joao Pedro, who started the first game up front and today played more off of Liam Delap, who I thought did such a good job of holding up play. And I'm sorry, now I'm remembering the goal, right? Estevao, his assist to Fernandez, comes up Liam Delap's exceptional hold-up play. The ball gets played into his feet by Estevao. Delap is leading the line off his own, holds it up really well, holds off his defender really well, and then allows Estevao to run off him. But I think you really saw an interesting dynamic from Delap and Pedro today, in that the first game, it was all Joao Pedro up front. And in preseason, or in the Club World Cup, it was Pedro in the later games. Today, you saw his ability to play almost as a number 10, as a second striker, which is something we really saw him make his name at Brighton. And today, man, it was a Joao Pedro masterclass. He grabs his goal off a set piece, but his link-up play, his ability to drift past players, his ability to combine with others, set up 2 goals as well too. Joao Pedro, man, my take at the start of the season was that at the end of the year, I think we'll be looking at Joao Pedro as one of the best players in the world. I think currently we look at him as a really good player, like one of the better players in this position in the league. I think by the end of the season, Joao Pedro is a guy we will look at as one of the best players in the world, because I just don't think there's much that he's missing. He's really, really good technically, like superbly good technically. He can drift out wide. He can beat a man. Very good at holding up the ball. But guys, he's very, very strong as well too. He's a strong guy. He's quick. He's able to kind of muscle you off the ball. When he shows his aggressive side of the game, I'm looking at Joao Pedro as a player that can kind of really do everything. I think we're looking at this guy towards the end of the season as one of the best in the world in his position. I'm a really, really big fan of Joao Pedro. I didn't really know where he fit into this team when they first signed him, but I think Enzo Maresca has done a brilliant job of profiling him there. And I think Enzo Maresca deserves a massive shout out here, because it's yet another example of, no matter who the personnel is, whether Palmer is available or not, whether it's Delap up front or Pedro, whether Colwill is available or not, whether it's Gittins one game or Neto, there aren't many better managers at setting up their team based on the personnel available and based on the opposition at play than Enzo Maresca. And it's also why I believe in the Champions League this year, they will be a huge threat because game for game, Maresca sets up this team brilliantly, man. Honestly, he's such a good tactician. I want to give a big shout out as well to Chalobah. Chalobah, to me, look, Estevao wins man of the match, and I think he was brilliant. Joao Pedro, a goal and 2 assists, brilliant. But Chalobah doesn't put a foot wrong today, guys. Seriously. And I really love his story. Last season, obviously, left out of the team. He was part of that group that was kind of relegated to training with the reserves. He ended up going on loan to Crystal Palace. And then when Chelsea kind of had their center back crisis last season, Chalobah was recalled. And one thing I really rate about Chalobah is he had every right to kind of snub Chelsea, right? Say, I'm not really interested. You can play me. I'm gonna down tools. Like, you wouldn't blame if he came back and like his head was down, he was discouraged. Chelsea effectively discarded him. But the mentality to come back and say, okay, you guys messed up the first time, and I definitely feel a way about it. But I'm going to come back, dig my feet in, and show you guys the player you guys were missing for the first 6 months of the season. I think takes real mentality. He was exceptional the second half of the season, in my opinion. And again, he's proving to be a guy that whenever he gets called on, he can do a role. And I thought today he was flawless, guys. Defensively so good, in the air so good. Look, he's not Levi Colwill. None of these guys are in terms of punching the ball through the lines into those midfield players. But he tries his best, and I think he does a pretty good job of it, man. So Chalobah, he will always have my respect, man. I really have a lot of time and admiration for players who get mistreated by their club and still come in and put the same effort in. Real top professional right there. What does this mean for Chelsea? I think it's just back on track for them. I don't think there's too many big takeaways to take from this other than Estevao. I think Estevao is really rapidly showing that, look, he could make a quicker impact than a lot of people thought. I watched him in the Club World Cup. I thought he looked really raw, but that's 2 games in the Prem now. I thought he was one of their brighter players against Palace, and I think he was really good today. So I think that's a big takeaway. And I think it's just another takeaway that without Palmer, they can still put out a competitive team. But I'm sorry today, guys, I think it's more of a conversation on West Ham. Where do they go? The only way is sacking Graham Potter. And I like Graham Potter. I think he did a really good job at Brighton. I thought he didn't do a good job at Chelsea, but I thought it was harsh to judge him too much on Chelsea. That was a team that was in transition. The club was in transition. They were mid-takeover. But this West Ham stint has been nothing short of an absolute disaster. I'm sorry. It is an absolute disaster. This team has no identity under him. And I'm sorry. They have been under his stewardship long enough now to be able to say, you should know what a Graham Potter West Ham team looks like. And I'm sorry, I have no idea what it looks like. In build-up, they're a shambles. Defensively, they're absolutely at 6s and 7s. It almost feels like if it's not Bowen or Paqueta pulling something out of nothing, this West Ham team doesn't know how to score goals. They don't know how to score. They don't know how to defend. And I think the only way under Graham Potter right now is down. They need to make a change. And they need to make sure that the next appointment they make has to be spot on. Because they messed it up with Lopetegui. And they messed it up with Graham Potter. The next guy they get, they cannot afford to mess up. Because mess it up one more time, and they might be messing up all the way down to the championship. I seriously worry for them. But let me know, guys, what you guys think in the comment section down below. We did this game on YouTube. It was a YouTube and Twitch watch along. So if you guys were in there, leave it in the comment section down below. And let me know what you guys think about Chelsea going forward, man. What was the most impressive thing for you? And for West Ham, what do they need to change? Who would you guys hire for in Graham Potter's place? My hot take, and I think I've seen someone repeat it in here. I could very easily see them firing Graham Potter, Nottingham Forest firing Nuno, and West Ham hiring Nuno Espirito Santo. And for me, that feels like a West Ham hire. Going and getting Nuno Espirito Santo, who is a master of keeping teams up first and foremost, but also building a solid defensive foundation for a team. I think he's really good at that. Now, is he going to play the liquid football that West Ham fans dream of? Probably not. But is he at least going to keep you in the division? Is he going to make you defensively solid? Is he going to make you hard to beat? Undoubtedly so. So that's my hot take. I think I could easily see Forest firing Nuno, because it looks like that relationship between him and Mr. Marinakis is gone. Them getting Ange, which I have question marks over, and West Ham getting Nuno. And that might be enough to keep them up. Because you look at this team, guys, and they have better players than Burnley. I don't think that's debatable. I would say they have better players than Leeds. They probably have better players than, I don't know, Wolves. But the way they play, they look more disjointed than all those sides. And I think that comes down to the manager. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Like, share, subscribe. I keep saying it. We're on a road to 80,000 subscribers. Let's get there as a community. I can only do it with your guys' help. I'll see you guys very soon. Peace.